Hey there and welcome back to Beginners Fab. My name is McGrew and we're going to talk a little bit about adjusting spring height for your vehicle on the DIY low budget build. The reality of it is that anytime you're talking about adjusting spring height, the best thing to do is get coilovers, get a spring that's the actual height, the length that you need, get the pound per inch weight rate spring that you need. But if you're doing it on a budget and you don't have anything available to you, like where I'm at here, if I order anything from the States, I'm not guaranteed that it'll work the way that I want it. Plus, on top of all of that, honestly, I have to wait a few months and then I can't return it. And if I try to return it, it's a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's just not feasible to try to buy a spring that is the weight rate that I need at the length, quote unquote, that I need. And the other thing is that it's hard to find some spring rates with the length that you need specifically. For instance, the spring rate that I need is about 210 pounds per inch, and it's right around 8.5, 9 inches of length that I need, and that's kind of hard to find from what I've noticed. What do you need to keep in mind? Well, when I'm looking at this, I know that this sits about 2.25 inches higher than what I need it to. So basically my only option is to cut the springs that I have. Now, that's never ideal. I'm not even gonna lie. If you can avoid doing that, avoid doing it. However, it's worse to heat a spring until it collapses than it is to cut a spring. Why? Because heating a spring until it collapses creates so much heat that it debilitates the metal and therefore it collapses. But it's not just debilitating where the heat is applied right there. It's debilitating where the heat is applied directly more so, but that heat travels up the spring and starts to debilitate the other portions of the spring. And in fact, some people who have heated springs for them to collapse to the size that they need actually have ended up collapsing their spring further down the road while they're driving. Not maybe the same day, but over months, over years, because it was heated and it gets brittle and the spring either breaks, it collapses more, and then you start getting a sag on one side or the other and it doesn't look right. So instead of doing that, it's better to cut the spring with some kind of the least amount of heat possible, which in this case I use very, very thin cutoff wheels on an angle grinder. And I try to cut them, let it sit, let it cool, and hopefully it doesn't debilitate it too much. However, there is something that I will lose, and this is a challenge, and this is something that you need to keep in mind. If you look at the bottom of the spring, you'll see that the spring is a tighter coil here. If you see here, it's a tighter coil here than these coils are. The reason for that is because this is actually a base that it sits on. So when I cut off this base, I will lose effectively the base platform that it should sit on. The same goes up here at the top. If you cut this off, you lose that platform for it to sit on top. So no matter what you do, you're going to alter the sitting pattern of the spring if you cut them, which is why it's ideal not to cut them once again. So if you can avoid it, avoid it. If you can't avoid it, you just have to deal with what you have. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm actually gonna have to cut mine. I'm gonna cut it off here. I know how much I need to take off, but I'm gonna go ahead and just cut the first coil off first, because you can always take off more, but you can't add it back once it's gone. So I'm going to cut off this one coil, test it, and then I'm going to go back and not only test it with height of the vehicle, how it rides, but also I'm going to test it with my base and see if I need to adjust the angle here of that spiral so that it sits better and so that it has what it needs to be strong and secure inside the suspension. So that's what I'm gonna do now, cut it off, and then I'm gonna place it so that I can see it and see how it works.